minutes. We do have microphones, so if you just wait a little bit, a microphone will get to you so everybody can hear you.
Also, an announcement from the organizers, the food court is open. There is no lunch break, so you have to take extreme personal responsibility and feed yourself in your own time.
Gamble wisely.
You've got to hodl those sandwiches. We now have Nicolas, CEO of Galoy, to introduce or to talk about building the tools of a Bitcoin journey and the Blink API.
Yes. Welcome.
Welcome, Nicolas. Thank you.
All right. Building the tools for the Bitcoin journey, the why of Blink API. So maybe you've heard about it, maybe you've not. We make 3 announcements today. We have announced a partnership with a large distributor in El Salvador. We have announced the ability to buy and sell Bitcoin from fiat banking, also in El Salvador. And lastly, we have announced the debut of the Lightning API. This talk is focused on the later part. The first question you might be thinking, okay, just another API, right? There's already a dozen of API you can use out there. What is different with this API that we are offering today? Why should I care? If we step back a little bit, we believe that Bitcoin adoption can unlock community, prosperity, and stability the world has never seen. And I think the evolution of El Salvador is a good sign that we see this happening in real time. But the reality is we're very far from hyper-Bitcoinization, right? From being able to use Bitcoin at a larger scale. We need to cross the divide between the old world, right, the gray world, to the greener pasture on the other side. We need to build bridges. And to build these bridges, we need open source tool. And at Galoy, this is what we're doing. We're building those tools. Let me dive more into the specific. We started the company 4 years ago now with the first wallet called the Bitcoin Beach wallet. This has been rebranded to Blink. Blink is a custodial wallet for everyday payments, right? This is our tagline. But the way to think about it is really we're trying to onboard people new to the ecosystem to understand what Bitcoin is, what Lightning is. The fact that you can use Lightning for everyday payments. It's really, okay, we bring no coiner to experiment their first Lightning transaction, to experiment banking on Bitcoin. We're also developing open source software with the open source Galoy stack. The goal of the Galoy stack is to make organizations become their own bank. We want them to have their own ledger. We want them to have their own node. But the reality we are confronted with today is that corporations are not ready to become their own bank. It's too early for them. They don't even know that they can be their own bank, right? They're too used to the traditional fiat banking system. You know, this said, there is already corporation, typically communities today that are using our software and they're building their own wallet. Bitcoin Jungle is one of the first that's starting forking our code. It's a wallet in Costa Rica. Interestingly enough, the second wallet that also starting our software is also in Costa Rica. It's called Pura Vida. The third one, from which if you want to learn about, is called Flash. There is a talk tomorrow at 1:30 that will talk about it on the Nicolas stage. It's a wallet in Jamaica. But the reality of the Galoy stack today is like it's not easy. You have to run a lot of microservices. You have to run different nodes. We operate in a way where we want payment to work. We want reliability. So there's a lot of pieces we need to bring together to make this work. The idea of the Blink API is to be a bridge between this Blink solution that is very easy to use and the Galoy stack that is advanced and that is for corporations that want to be sovereign, that want to be unriggable. The idea of the Blink API is say, look, if you're a corporation and you want to start using Bitcoin as money, you can just use it in a way where you have an API endpoint. You can hit this endpoint to send a payment, to receive a payment. It's really streamlined. And we think this is a good way to go from, okay, corporations are made by individuals, right? So first, if you want a corporation to adopt Bitcoin, you need to make sure the shareholder, the director, the executive understand Bitcoin. And Blink is a good way to do it, because if they can operate here, if they're in El Salvador, they can start paying their everyday expense with Bitcoin, they will say, oh, you know what, maybe we can also use Bitcoin for our business. And then the first starting point we're there is to say, okay, probably the easiest is to do the same way we do with fiat banking, right? We just are going to integrate an API to send and receive dollar. Now we can use an API to send and receive Bitcoin. And so a hosted API is a good way to get started. Eventually, when those corporations will have learned, they will want to move from a self-hosted API to a hosted API to a self-hosted API. And a good way to think about it, at least the way I think about it, is my experience when I start working in Bitcoin or exploring Bitcoin. 6 years ago, I bought my first Bitcoin, maybe $50 with a debit card on Coinbase, because I was just starting. I didn't really know that you can actually have, 12 words of 20 or 24 words, or, hardware wallet, and you can self-custody, right? It's really a journey. It takes months, it takes years as an individual to make this transition. And for corporations, the same. Corporation will start from, okay, what is maybe the smallest steps to get started from not accepting Bitcoin to accepting Bitcoin. And the smallest step is to have an API that is what they know, what will be the same as a bank, basically. So what does this API provide? One of the very important things is reliability. Today, we know that there are more than hundreds of thousands of users that register to the Blink wallet, and they're using the wallet in a way where they want their payment to be reliable. They want to make sure that when they're in front of a merchant, they're expecting payment to succeed. And we want them to feel that Lightning is as reliable as Visa, right? Today, when you use a debit card, you're not wondering whether, okay, is this payment going to work? No, it has working for long enough, for the last 10, 20, 30 years, such that you can just, tap to pay and it works, right? Like your consciousness don't even wonder if it's going to work. It's not the case today with Lightning, unfortunately. But we spend probably something like 20 to 25% of our engineering resources on the reliability, right? On having redundancy all across the stack to make sure that people have the same expectation that Lightning always works. And so the API we are providing is using the same infrastructure, right? So we want to reach, 100% uptime or close to 100% uptime. It's something that is very important to us. Second thing is this Lightning API, we want it to be simple. And this is the idea of a hosted API, is you don't need to manage liquidity, right? It just works. You start sending payments, receiving payments. It's as easy as hitting an API, and this is the right way for a corporation to get started, right? Why a corporation that wants to start accepting payments should start thinking about liquidity. No, liquidity is something you learn eventually if you want to have your own infrastructure. A key point about our API is we want to be low cost. We made today an announcement with this distributor Morrison. And one of the key selling points that we have to them is to say that using Lightning, using Bitcoin, will make your business more efficient. I think it's good to think about all the philosophical value of Bitcoin. But when it's about convincing a business to adopting Bitcoin, the philosophical value, doesn't go that far. But if you say to them that, look, today accepting Visa, collecting cash costs you 5%, 3%. If you start accepting Lightning, it's like 0.1%, 0.2%. It's an order of magnitude better. And I believe being low cost, very efficient in terms of pricing is a key way we'll get business to adopt Bitcoin. It's very important because profitability matters for business. If they can get a competitive advantage by using Lightning, by using Bitcoin, and they understand that their margin, net margin, will increase by 3%, they will do it. Another key aspect of our API, it's like a wallet, it's StableSats enabled. What this means is that a business will maybe want to accept Bitcoin if it can drive efficiency for them, but if on the other hand it creates accounting hurdle because now they have to manage a new currency in their book, maybe they're not ready to do it at the beginning. Maybe at the beginning they will say, okay, I'm happy to try to use Lightning as a payment system, Bitcoin as a payment system, but I don't want the volatility of Bitcoin. And we have developed a technology called StableSats over the last 2 years. And we have the idea of StableSats says that, look, you can start receiving Bitcoin payments. Your accounting is in dollar. You don't need to care about the volatility of Bitcoin. And it's really this idea that I just talked about in the previous panel about we can start to think of separating Bitcoin the protocol with Bitcoin the asset. And businesses will want to start accepting Bitcoin as Bitcoin the protocol probably because it makes the payment more efficient. Eventually they will learn about Bitcoin the asset, on their own time. But not having to deal with a new currency is a big plus. And this is something that we're providing natively with our API. So why the Blink API? I already touched on that. We start with a consumer wallet, and on the other hand, we have this very sophisticated stack that company can self-run, they can run their own bank, they can become their own bank. But we understand after 4 years running Galoy that companies are not here today. They're not ready. But we believe the Blink API will be a bridge for which we can onboard a lot of corporations. I'm super excited to have corporations in El Salvador starting to use the API to drive more adoption of Bitcoin. If you want to try it today, there is 2 links you can check out, dashboard.blink.sv and dev.blink.sv. We have 2 sessions today to dig deeper. My session was a why of this API, why we decided to do it. Arvin in the room just here will talk about the what. What can you do with this API? Dive into the use cases. And we have OpenArms later today also that will do a workshop to just, if you want to use the API, you can get started in minutes. You can do something, and the workshop is the right place to go. With that said, thank you. If you have any question, I think we have a couple of minutes. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Hi, really cool
Thank you.
what you're building. So, one main concern when spending Bitcoin is to spend it. And so there are solutions right now on layer 2, which is to borrow against your Bitcoin and to sell it. Is that going to be possible with StableSats, or it's just spending? Is there a way to borrow against Bitcoin? Thank you.
That's a good question. Today's StableSats is really a payment system. We are working at Galoy mostly on the payment infrastructure at this stage. I believe there is a place to borrow dollar against your Bitcoin. And I think that's one of the very interesting use cases of Bitcoin is a pristine collateral. And the reality is that even though no financial institution want to touch this, it's a very safe, I think, instrument. But yeah, the borrowing lending is not something that we are focused on, so we don't provide these services today. Maybe in the future, but this is not the our main mission so far.
Over here. Good morning. I thought your talk was very interesting. Thank you. And I'm just curious to hear if you have any use cases or customers who are already demonstrating what you describe as the sovereignty aspect on that API, on the platform.
On the sovereign aspect?
Yeah, that in particular, because obviously at layer 1 you have the notion of Bitcoin sovereignty, right? So how does that factor build up into the business level sovereignty?
I mean, the right way to think about sovereign is looking at those. Today it's communities that is mainly using our stack, but those communities have deployed their own wallet, and they are sovereign on their wallet, right? Like we have not, we don't have control of their key. Like they have control of their keys, they have their multisig. So the Galoy stack can be used to develop your own wallet. And yeah, I think if you want to learn about one corporation that is using it, check out this talk tomorrow. That will be, you can talk with someone that have used our open source software, put it in production, or is about to put a production for this one. And I think they will be giving feedback on it. The API that we are doing, the Blink API is a hosted API, so you don't have control of your phone.
Hi, thanks. Great talk. What are you advising for corporations around key management when it comes to the API? Is that in the API or is it in Galoy? Thank you.
So on our stack, we currently use a multi-sig system for storing the fund. So the idea about if as a corporation you want to have your own wallet, but it's not just about storing Bitcoin, but it's also about using Bitcoin. Typically what you want to do is you want to segregate you want to segregate so you have cold storage here. And you will typically have the vast majority of your fund in a cold storage. This cold storage we're using standard Bitcoin script for it. And the front end we use is a Spectre desktop. So you can configure it the way you want. So you can say, okay, it can be a 2 out of 3, it can be a 3 out of 5. It depends on your situation, right? It depends on how much money you have at stake. And typically you might want to use like 90, 95%, 99% of your Bitcoin in this cold storage. But if you also want to send and receive payments, you need to have Bitcoin that is online somewhere. We call it a hot wallet or a warm wallet in contrast with a cold wallet. And this is where the LND come from here. So we have, in our case, for Blink, 2 Lightning nodes because we want the high availability, the redundancy. And the rest of the funds are on this hot wallet. And then you need to do rebalancing at times. So if there is too much money on the hot wallet, it's the money that is at risk if you get hacked. You want to limit how much money is there. And so you typically want to set limit, and we have like auto rebalancing algorithm, so you can say, okay, if it goes above, that amount of money, then automatically send the money to the cold storage. And if the money is depleted on the hot wallet, what you want to do is the opposite. You want to go to the cold storage, and you coordinate with a set of people that have access to the key, and you replenish the hot wallet. It's basically how every exchange in the world operates, right? You put the vast majority of your money in a very safe cold storage, and because you want instant payment, you need to have some money that is on a server somewhere. Great. Maybe one more question?
I think we're good.
All right, no question.
Thank you.
Thank you.